Welcome back folks. Today in Crimson Desert we're going to talk about the latest developer update, where they talked about all of the upcoming features and changes which they're going to implement into the game, and there is a lot here that people were asking for. Honestly, it is really nice when developers are in tune with the community, when they're listening to what people have to say, and they're incrementally making those changes which ultimately benefit the game. So let's go through the entire message. Fellow Greymanes, it's hard to believe that it's been nearly 3 weeks since we first welcomed you to Pywell. Over that time we have been closely following your adventures, discussions and feedback, while working to make Crimson Desert an even more enjoyable experience for everyone. We've especially loved seeing the stories you have been creating across Pywell, and yes, that includes many adorable cat screenshots. And we also want to give a special shout out to those of you earning Pywell Legend trophies and achievements. You have our sincere admiration. Watching everyone's journey unfold since launch has meant a great deal to us, and we're truly grateful for your dedication and support. Today we're going to share a preview of some of the new features and content currently in development, shaped by your feedback, including a variety of content for those looking for more ways to enjoy the game and those who want to further challenge themselves. Our goal is to roll these updates out gradually from April through June. First of all, we're going to talk about new content and features because they're preparing new challenges so we can continue testing ourselves through our journey across Pywell. Boss Rematches. The powerful bosses you encountered across Crimson Desert are waiting to challenge you once again. With Boss Rematches, you'll have the opportunity to face off against any boss again, test how much you've grown, and further refine your own combat style through different strategies and approaches. I think this is a pretty good change, especially if you just want to, fight a boss and see like how your build is doing. To be honest, I do think that some of the bosses in this game do need a little bit of revising when it comes to their attacks and how in general they're behaving, because some of the bosses throughout the game I have genuinely enjoyed fighting, but some were honestly a bit too annoying where it doesn't even count in towards like the learning their moves and how they fight, but sometimes they're going to just spam their abilities too much to the point where it becomes just annoying, so especially when you count in like camera work during that time. But in a nutshell, because they're doing boss rematches, I'm pretty certain they're going to do some of those revisions for those bosses. They're also introducing reblockading. Peace is fleeting and darkness does not retreat so easily. Enemy remnants are waiting for their chance to reclaim liberated locations. Drive out the forces that have seized these locations once more and continue proving the strengths of the Greymanes. I think this is a really nice change because, well, it just adds more people to fight on the map. Because one of the problems that people have started encountering, including myself, is that once you liberate almost every single location from a certain region, the number of enemies drops a lot to the point where people have trouble finding enemies to fight. And even when I'm recording like B-roll for this, video in general, I usually just revisit the locations I know it's going to respawn enemies, because in most of the locations those enemies are nowhere to be found, and actually having them, just attack a stronghold or basically an area you have liberated and take it back again, I think it adds a little bit more dynamic towards the map and just makes things a little bit more interesting in general once you finish that region or do most content through it. They are also going to include difficulty settings. A difficulty settings feature will be added so that everyone from new Greymanes to more advanced can enjoy the adventure at the level that suits them best. You'll be able to choose from easy, normal and hard difficulty, and also they're gonna be working on new combat focused content, so stay tuned. So in general, when this game was first announced and they said that there won't be any difficulty options, I was sort of happy with it because it means that we're actually gonna have to make our character kind of stand out more and work on our build so we can properly fight. But one of the things which I've encountered lately is that even though most of my journey so far was in the first region, I got so OP to the point where even venturing out of those areas into certain, let's say, other further locations, even though enemies do have different, attacks and they vary in what those enemies are and how they defend and how they attack, I noticed that it was sort of getting a bit too easy in some sense. So just having maybe a hard difficulty in the sense which they're gonna be implementing is maybe going to change that. But also at the start of the game, once you're pretty weak in that sense and you haven't really invested any points into your skills and you don't have any abyss gear on your weapons and armor, things can become a little bit difficult, especially where you are on the map. So it's gonna be interesting to see how the difficulty settings are going to play into all of this. But honestly, people were requesting difficulty settings, so we'll see how it's going to go in the end. But of course, I will be testing a lot of that stuff when it comes out. When it comes to improvements to character play, they're gonna be adding new skills for Damiene and Oongka. We fully understand your feedback about the need for Damiene and Oongka to have the skills comparable to Force Palm and Axiom Force. To address this, both characters will receive new abilities equivalent to those skills. This is also nice. I'm gonna be honest, I've spent a little time playing as Damiene and Oongka, and even though once you unlock Damiene, she becomes sort of unavailable during like a couple of chapters throughout the game itself, and if you don't know already, a lot of the content which you do with Cliff, you cannot really do with Damiene and Oongka in general. They're sort of really good for like maybe free play if you're just exploring stuff and some of the like missions that they have for themselves, but most of the stuff is unavailable to them. And honestly, there's a couple of changes and things I would personally want from them to implement. The first one being when it comes to Abyss artifacts. So every single time you get an Abyss artifact through various things, they're going to actually not be shared between those characters. So let's say if you have 10 Abyss artifacts and you want to invest some of them in Damiene or Oongka, I think it's not really viable because, again, most of the content is locked out for them, and majority of stuff you do want to save for Cliff in general, because especially those Abyss artifacts, even though there is a lot of them which you can earn, also have to go into refining material from both armor and weapons. So I didn't really see a need to invest any of it for those other characters, because the only thing they do share are going to be the big three: the spirit, stamina, and health. Everything else is you have to kind of risk and say like, okay, if I'm going to invest this into other characters, that means I'm not going to have enough for Cliff later on, because that also requires a lot, especially once you start going through like the higher levels of all of those three big skills, like as I said, spirit, stamina, and health. So I'm just going to save them. So I do wish that maybe we get the option to just have those Abyss artifacts for those characters as well, because again, it makes it more viable to play them, and because you cannot even do a lot of the missions with them, I don't think it's going to really break anything within the game, especially this being a single player title. And when it comes to summoning companions to aid you in your fight, I do believe that their AI should be addressed there, because sometimes I'm going to summon maybe like Damiene to fight alongside with me to travel like, you know, through the map. Her AI is really not the best, so hopefully that is going to be addressed in the future so that she's more viable also as a companion to travel with. They're also going to add the option to hide back weapons. A new option to hide the weapons on your character's back will be added, so certain equipment worn on your back won't break immersion during combat. I think this is mostly referring to the shield for Cliff, because even though, let's say, you're doing a two-hander or you're dual wielding blades or whatever weapons, the shield is going to stay on his back. Now, I think one of the main reasons why this is going to take a little bit of time is because throughout all of the cutscenes, Cliff is going to take out his shield and a, you know, one-handed weapon. He's not really going to take out like a two-hander, or he's not going to use any other weapons within those cutscenes. So I think they need more time to balance those things out within the cutscenes so they can fully work. But just adding the ability to hide the shield, for example, or just any other weapon in general, I think is a very good change. Also, they're gonna be adding new outfits for characters. Additionally, certain outfits that can only be sold or donated will be updated so they can also be worn. I think this is also a very welcoming change, because it just allows for people to have more experimentation in what they wear, and they can also like do different stuff with dyeing and just the in general sort sort of clothing they want to have their character to have. So this is again a very welcoming change. And there is also another feature which I hope is added. Maybe this is already in the game. If it is, just let me know down below, maybe because I haven't reached it. But I think that some of the armor pieces in this game, or set pieces, which look fantastic, which come with, let's say, 1 or 2 socket slots or maybe 0, maybe there is also a way to add an option to create sockets for some of that outfits, for some of those like clothing pieces or armor pieces. Maybe they cost a bit more to create, but I think it would allow people to sort of have like the equipment which they like on themselves, so they can pay some extra silver, whatever, to create additional like sockets, not just unlock them, but also create sockets which they can use on that piece of armor. When it comes to quality of life improvements and life features, they're going to add new specialized storage. This is fantastic. I've been asking for this for ages. So they're gonna be adding food storage. We plan to add a new food storage, which you can directly take out ingredients for use in cooking. When preparing meals, you'll be able to use ingredients from both your food storage and your inventory. I think this is fantastic for when you're preparing, you know, just the food in the camp, because every single time you have to go to your private box, you have to take out a bunch of items, then cook a bunch of those meals, then return all of the leftovers back into the private box. So just having this, I think, makes life a little bit easier and makes things from the quality of life perspective a lot better. Also, they're gonna be adding the new wardrobe storage that you can use to store your headgear, armor, gloves, footwear and clothes. This is very, very good. There is also one more thing when it comes to just item pieces or armor or weapons in general that should be addressed. So in your camp, when you're donating provisions, you can donate pretty much weapons and armor. By mistake, there is a way that if you click by mistake, you can donate a piece of armor or a weapon which is maybe high tier one, the one which you're not wearing at that moment. Maybe you have equipped 2 like one-handed swords and your shield is in your inventory. If you donate that, I don't really think there is a way for you to get it back, because I tested it. I donated one of my shield, which is like the one that I found on the map, and it did not appear in the ability for me to like reclaim that stuff. So I don't know if it was a bug, maybe it just was happening to me, maybe you do have just a way to get it back, but I think those things should be addressed. If you donate something, I think there should be a way to maybe get it back for a certain time, so that if you donate something which you didn't want to, you can just get it back. Also, the same thing is going to be for gatherable storage. A new gatherable storage will be added, from which you can directly take out items for use in tampering and crafting. This storage will be able to hold a variety of crafting materials, including insects, stones, ores, and more. Again, just like when it comes to preparing food, same with the refining and crafting stuff, this is very, very good to have. And also a collection storage. A new collection storage will be added, giving you a place to keep quest items tied to your adventures, along with the recipes and other items you've collected on your journey. Pretty good. Also, for pets and mounts, more summonable mounts and new pets will be added. Also, in addition to existing horse stack sets, dedicated armor for other mounts is also being planned. This is fantastic, because if you have a wolf or a bear or whatever other legendary mount, there is nothing really which you can equip on them, so only horses have that. So just having the ability to have this in the future is really good. Now, when it comes to systems and graphics improvement, first off, UI improvements. To improve legibility, we'll be adding a minimum font size adjustment option. Since Crimson Desert supports 14 UI languages, fully optimizing this feature across all of them will take some time, but we plan to introduce it first to make the game more comfortable to play. We also plan to continue improving various UI elements and quality of life features, including improvements to the map, inventory, and housing. And this is good because maybe you're leaning back in your chair or your bed and you're playing with a controller on your TV, and your TV is not really that close. The font can be really small, so it makes things kind of difficult to read. So having this is really good to actually improve on those features in general, but I do understand it's going to take some time. When it comes to improvements to controls, they're also carefully reviewing your feedback about controls. To provide a better gameplay experience, we plan to add customization options for certain controller inputs. Fantastic. We will also expand the range of configurable keys for keyboard and mouse to improve usability. This is also a very welcoming change. Also, they're gonna be adding improvements to distant scenery quality. We are working on enhancing the realism of distant backgrounds so you can enjoy Pywell's landscapes in greater depth. Please note that the patch size may be somewhat larger due to improvements to how distant scenery changes and the quality of rendering under different conditions. And also they have provided some examples here when it comes to just the distant, how would I say, objects and, you know, features within the world. And we can see, like, at least what they've been showing right now, there is a lot more detail texture wise in the distance, especially with the mountains. You can see that it kind of differentiates a lot more to where the snow is and where it isn't, depending on how far you are from that location, which it would change if you were approaching that location right now in the game. So again, this is pretty good when you take a look at it, and hopefully that's also going to work well with the optimization in general when it comes to game, even though at least from my own configuration it was running pretty good. But there's definitely things which can be improved just to tighten things up within the engine, and because they're using their own engine, I think they have the ability to properly do this. Also, do keep in mind that the images above are captured on a high-end PC at cinematic mode, 4K resolution and upscale mode off, and will differ depending on hardware specs, settings, platform, etc. So I mean, this is kind of logical. Also, for the end, they said they're gonna be releasing the Crimson Desert OST. The OST will be available for free on Steam and will also be released on major global streaming platforms, so stay tuned. So look, so far this is a pretty good developer update. A lot of the stuff that people were asking for, again, including what I've been sort of, you know, reporting as well. I think this is nice that they're listening, and it just makes me honestly very happy for the future of this game and everything which they have been discussing that might be added in the future besides all of these other changes which are mentioned here. And especially considering that it's been 3 weeks since the game has released, and to have all of these like changes implemented relatively fast, again, you know, from April through June, again is pretty fast, because some of the other titles do require a lot more time to have a lot of these things addressed, and I feel like they've been moving really fast to like sort of like keep the momentum going and be, again, as I said, in tune to what community has been discussing and what the community has been reporting to them. As always, I'm going to leave a link down below in the description so you can check it out for yourself, and that's pretty much everything for today. Thank you for watching. I am very happy that you're enjoying my Crimson Desert coverage. Thank you very much for that, and honestly, I am looking forward to covering this game in the future as well. If you enjoyed this video, consider liking and subscribing for more. Check us out on Twitter and Discord, and huge thanks to my Patreon supporters. This is LKM signing out, and I will see you very soon with a new video. Bye bye.